don't know him, you don't know wrestling. This man has held 6 different belts. The only team to win all 3 major belts, the Crockett Cup. This man's a legend in his
How am I not going to like this guy, right? He knows everything.
Now, I want to ask you one question.
Welcome to a very special edition of Hero Television. The gentleman sitting next to me, there's no way to describe. This gentleman has entertained thousands of people all over the world, from Chicago, New York, Vegas, cruise ships, you name it, he's been there, even Italy. This man is a true legend in the Chicagoland area. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor on this special day to interview the one, the only, the pretty much quintessential entertainer of Chicago, Mr. Tony Ocean.
How you doing, Paul? Thanks for being here, man. I'm very excited.
Well, this event has been going on, everyone's been talking about this, 25 years. And with deep appreciation, there's no way to encapsulate 25 years in just a one show and to talk about everything that you've done. I mean, but you have to, for people to really appreciate what you've done, you have to go back to the beginning. And you were born in Italy, yeah. Maurizio Carrera, correct?
Carrera.
Correct. Yeah. Most people don't know. They know you as Tony Ocean.
Or they know me as Mo, yeah, you're right.
As
right,
Mo.
Yeah.
And your Italian heritage is so important to you and your family. I mean, anyone that knows Tony Ocean knows that family is so important. Tell us how this beginning of the journey started for you.
Oh, boy. I always liked singing. My grandfather used to sing. He sang opera, so I think that's where I got my voice from. When we moved to Cicero, my dad got a job for Ganella Baking Company. That's what brought us to Cicero, Illinois. And then we moved to Elmwood Park, Illinois. But I was always singing, to myself, of course. I grew up listening to British invasion music, the Beatles and Herman's Hermits and the Kinks and all those great bands. And then, of course, I liked the Sinatra Rat Pack stuff that my parents were listening to. So when I started, I was singing rock and roll stuff. I wanted to be the Beatles, of course, or Mick Jagger, or, whoever it was. So I always wanted to play. I was always in bands. My first paying gig was in a band called Tyranny. I think I was 16 years old, and in the bar, they wouldn't let me stay in the bar when we were on break. I had to sit in the car because I wasn't old enough. So we were doing plenty of shows. I was always working. Then we went to another band, Broken Heart, 1313, Big Bang Rodeo, did Star Search. And then after a while, when you finally realize that you can't make a living of doing the rock and roll music, it's very difficult. It takes a very luck songwriter. I'm not a songwriter. So I always wanted to do the Sinatra Rat Pack stuff. But at the time, the guys I was with didn't think it was cool. They thought it was old man's music, wedding music. That's not cool. I got a chance to do it, took a shot at it, and then started doing it as Tony Ocean. Came up with the name from Danny Ocean from Ocean's 11, the original one with Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack. I didn't think I looked like a Danny, so I picked Tony out of that. And started doing that in the little nightclubs while I was still working a full-time job. Then a little play called The Pack is Back came my way. Nick Fortuna, the bass player of the original Buckinghams, his brother Frank Fortuna, who was playing Frank Sinatra, started this little show called The Pack is Back. He asked me to play Dean Martin. So I took the role of Dean Martin. We tried it at the little place called the Jazz Buffet Theater. It ran for about 8-9 weeks, very successfully. So then we had producers come in and said, we're going to move it to a bigger venue. And the producer, of course, was Ron Onesti. So me and Ron go back many, many years. We moved it to Piper's Alley, changed the script, brought in different characters, brought in another Sinatra, Ron Hawking. Lonnie Parler played Sammy, Ron Hawking played Frank Sinatra. And went to a couple other different Sinatra guys, Jack D'Amico, Bill Acosta, Bobby Caldwell, but I was always the Dean Martin. And the show ran for a couple years very successfully. And then we took the Chicago Rat Pack on the road. And in the meantime, by then, I quit my regular job, and when the play ended, Ron Onesti became my manager, and we started doing the nightclubs and grew from there. That's where it actually, started.
And going back to your early childhood, because you were born in Italy, most people don't, the full blood Italian line goes all the way back to Italy. You moved to the States, I believe 4 years old, and your parents have such influence. Was that music because of them? You know, the Frank Sinatras because of that generation when they came to the States?
I think my father was listening more to that stuff. My mom was listening to the vintage Italian stuff. Well, I love that music too. And that's where it came. And then, you know, when you just watched them on television growing up, you know, when you were a rock guy, you watching the Beatles, you wanted the suits and all the girls going crazy, you wanted to be a Beatle. But then if you looked at the Rat Pack, the class, the style, every man wanted to be them. Any woman wanted to sleep with them, whatever it is, they wanted to be there. And they had that whole charisma, and I just love that, what they had.
Well, and on top of it, too, not only with your parents' influence, you speak English and Italian, and also can write Italian, and you have both of it. That's a dying trait.
Well, if I wasn't still speaking to my mother on a daily basis, I probably would have lost the language. But so thanks, Mom.
So you know if she gets mad at you, you know she's speaking English.
Right, she's speaking English. But she starts to call me Tony now, which kind of concerns me.
Yeah, she's mad at Tony.
Yeah.
But Mauricio, when you were growing up as a kid, you know, with all the different Brazil invasion, did you know you wanted to sing? Because I know back in high school, you know, around believe your junior year, you know, your group sang in front of the Pope.
Yeah, that was in high school, the concert choir in Elmwood Park High School. Yeah. But I always wanted to sing rock and roll. I always looked myself in the mirror with a comb and pretend, you know, I was these great guys that I listened to. And of course, you know, I was born in '64, so, you know, that's when the Beatles first came to Ed Summit. I remember as being a little kid, I vaguely remember seeing them, my parents watching the Beatles on Ed Sullivan. I was too young, but I knew something special was happening when I watched them. Same thing when I seen Sinatra on stage or watching the Rat Pack on the movies, I knew something special was in, and I wanted to be part of it.
What was the first group, or what was your favorite group growing up as a kid?
Which my favorite group, to this day, they're the same group, Cheap Trick and the Raspberries. Yeah, they're my two favorite bands of all time.
And when you were growing up, who were your heroes? Who did you look up to growing up as a kid? Because, you know, a lot of people's influences are their heroes growing up, whether it's a sports figure or a parent or a teacher. Who were your heroes growing up?
Well, my father was my hero a lot. You know, that guy just worked all the way till the day he died. Never took vacation. He was going to do everything when he retired. Don't worry, we're going to do everything when he retired. And unfortunately, at 58 years old, he died. So he was always very hard. He didn't support my career so much because I left the bakery, you know, making like $17 an hour right out of high school. What? You're leaving to do what? You're a bum, you know. So, but my mother, I could never do no wrong. So she was my hero just as much, and she still is today. No matter what happens, my mom is the reason why that I'm doing what I'm doing. Because it could be a bad show. She calls me all the time. How was the show last night? Was there people? That was her big concern. Was there people? And she's my biggest fan. So my parents are always, and then of course the idols of the music business. You know, the John Lennon, you know, Keith Richards, Sinatra, and them guys. A big part of my life.
And when you got your first gig at 15, you know, at the bar in Stone Park, what was that feeling like? Because it's that validation, like, wait, now I'm actually getting paid to sing, not just sing in the shower.
Yeah.
What did that feel like?
God, it was really cool. Everybody was a lot older than I was. I was the youngest kid. It was a great feeling. I mean, we were a pretty good band for our age. You know, we had a lot of original stuff, but I was doing a lot of Mick Jagger copying at the time. But it was very exciting. And we went over okay. You know, most of our family and friends were there, but it was actually pretty cool. So I was pretty excited.
So what was the first band you were in?
It was called Tyranny.
Tyranny, okay.
With Jim Irwin. He's the guy that does the AC/DC tribute now with TNT. Okay. And then after that, we got Broken Heart, which we started playing the Odeum, and we got a couple records out, original music. And then 1313 we went nationwide with that one. Big Bang Rodeo was the one I did Star Search with Tony Melchiotti. He was the brainchild of that organ thing. And we lost by a quarter of a point on Star Search. So it was really cool. But as Tony Ocean, I got to travel all over and open for some of my heroes, and it's just a great feeling.
Did you, for your first band as Tyranny, were you Tony Ocean then, or were you
No, I was still Mo Carrara. Maurizio is my name, but they call me Mo because I was a diehard Three Stooges fan. Mo was my favorite of the Three Stooges. So Maurizio was too long, so they shortened it to Mo.
And when did you make that transition to Tony Ocean?
It was right when I started doing the Sinatra stuff. My first CD, Sleepborn Baby, came out in '96. So I think '94, '93 is when I first came up with the name and doing my first club date at the time with that name.
Now, when you were playing the bands for the first time, because I believe you've had 7 CDs out, I think you've been in part of 4 to 5 different bands you're in.
Sure.
But when you made that transition for that first time, when you actually on stage, what was the biggest misconception or thing that you learned? Because most people, when they get their dream job or that profession, they said, wow, it's one thing to dream about, but to actually do it, what was that feeling like?
You know what? It's very difficult. You thought, oh boy, we're great. They're going to love our songs and they're going to be picked up, and there's a lot more to it. You know, the playing part and the musician part is one thing, but all the inside stuff that goes on with the record companies and the producers and managers and stuff, you find out the good part of it and the dirty part of it too.
And because you've been part of, you know, these different bands, you know, the Dream Police, you know, the one you were talking about on Star Search,
Big Band Rodeo,
Big
yeah.
Band Rodeo, and, you know, and 1313, a lot of different bands that people don't know about. But when you were going from band to band to band, what was the reason as far as the changes? Was it just because they were playing different types of music, or what was, because when you're, you know, with you being as creative as you are, sometimes they don't all see the same path.
Yeah, that's basically what it was. I was looking for the band with the greatest pop hooks at the time, the ballads, and Broken Heart had some great originals. Tyranny did too for the young band that they were, but Broken Heart had some great ones. But then Big Bang Rodeo had some incredible pop songs, and I just think we might have hit a little too late when all those pop bands were making it at the time. I think we kind of jumped on the wagon a little too late, so we didn't get our chance. But we got on Star Search because we were at South by Southwest in Texas, and Gene Simmons of KISS found us and says, call this guy, and next thing you know, we were on Star Search. And we did a showcase for Steve Dahl from The Loop, and he introduced us to go to South by Southwest. So Steve Dahl got us on South by Southwest, Gene Simmons got us on Star Search, and that was it.
And with all these different bands that you've been doing and stuff, was there that time when you got the validation, you know, from your parents? You know, because it's like, you know, one thing, it's like, yeah, it's great to chase that dream. You know, you could be working like with your father in the bakery and says, you know, but that validation, did it finally hit? When was that time when it finally hit? Because, you know, you all want the love and support of your parents, but because you've been successful at, when was that one time when it happened?
When I started making a paycheck, and my dad looked at my paycheck and goes, wow, you can actually make money doing this, you know? And unfortunately, one regret I have in life that my dad didn't get to see me in Vegas in 2000 because he was sick. He died. But when I got to debut in the Riviera in Las Vegas in the year 2000, that was a big step for me. It was huge. After we hooked up with the Jillies organization downtown, and they made that call to get me in Las Vegas. And then everything before that, Ron Onesti had a lot to do with getting me where I'm at, performing all over. Ronnie was the first time to bring me to New York. Ron Onesti was there, and he's the one who owns this place here, the Speakeasy Tonight. I also owns the Club Arcada downstairs. So I had some very fortunate, good people in my life. Jimmy Cerrone was my manager from Jillies, and Phil Vaughn, who passed away, and Ron Onesti, and Tony LaBarbera, who I'm with now. People were trying to do the right thing, so that's why I think I'm made it as far as I did. But of course, if it wasn't for my fans and people coming to see me every night, you know.
Well, and the thing is that most people don't realize you're performing 5 nights a week for the last 25 years.
Yeah,
I mean, your dedication. I mean, there's one thing I always like to say in, you know, certain businesses, you can either play singer, but actually be a legitimate singer and actually, hey, you don't have any other job. This is it.
No, this is it. If I don't play, I don't eat, you know. And sometimes it's a little difficult. You know, I get pretty, I want to thank all the clubs who've been, you know, supporting me through all these years. But if the fans are not in the seats, you're not going to get a call back. And I've been very fortunate. God bless.
And with all the success that you've had over the years, You know, you had, you know, with all the different bands and everything. What is there any one or two moments that just gave you your own personal validation? Like, yes, I'm good at what I do, and because we all look for that, and you know, the validation not only from our parents but ourselves. Sometimes, was there one or two moments that you said, yes, I am a singer, I am a professional entertainer?
Yeah, when I was doing the Star Search thing, I thought that was very big for me. But then when I played the part of Dean Martin, you know, and those theaters were, those shows were sold out, 300 people every night. That was big. And we went to New York and we played, and I got to do Tina Sinatra's book signing party, you know, and did a big tour with Bill Zemi, who wrote the Frank Sinatra book, The Way You Wear Your Hat. Bill Zemi was a writer for Esquire magazine, and he did the Johnny Carson book. So, you know, when you get this kind of stuff, and of course, headlining in Las Vegas in the lounge in 2000 at the Riviera, it was a big deal.
And what was the draw, you know, when you were doing all these, you know, Cheap Trick, Dean Martin, the Rat Pack? Because it's like, you're just a jack of all trades, because some people think, well, Tony Ocean can just, you know, go to one genre and that's it, because you are successful there, but you've spread yourself out to so many different genres, so many different motivations as far as different singers and different groups. When you step back and you see what you've accomplished, what do you see? Because I know what I see, and I know what the fans see. I mean, we see a successful guy that's a, you know, like Singuli, you know, a legend of Chicago. Like when you think of Berwyn, you think of Singuli. And when they think of an entertainer that has, you know, most entertainers don't have a span of over 25 years and at the level that you've had so far. And I know it just keeps going up and up and up, but what do you see?
I'm just fortunate that every day I get a chance to do this for a living. I thank God for that, and I thank God for everybody who supports me. Because, look, I'm not the easiest guy to get along with. You know, I'm sure I pissed off some people in the past. That's why I even put a record out called Part of My Past. But I believe in what I believe in, and that's important to me. And I'm just thankful that I've got to do what I'm doing, and let's see what happens from here, you know.
Well, we're spending time with the infamous one and only Tony Ocean. We're right back with more of Hero Television.
I want you. I want you to want me.
Welcome back to Hero Television. We're spending a interesting evening, a once-in-a-lifetime, 25 years entertaining the fans of Chicago and, you know, the United States. I mean, you have traveled the world. You've also performed in Italy, the one, the only comparable Tony Ocean. Again, thank you for letting us spend this special evening with you. And when we talk about your career, I mean, it has spanned different bands and different genres of music. What was the attraction to Dean Martin? Because, you know, everyone was kind of like, you know, everyone to John Lennon, and no one wants to be Ringo or no one wants to be George Harrison.
Right,
Dean Martin had a different style to him. What drew you to him?
It's very simple. Just look at the guy. I mean, he was so cool. The way he dressed, the way he acted, you know, his persona was what he was in real life. Here's a perfect example. He never had a contract with any of his television shows. Any of his contracts in Las Vegas, anything, was all a handshake. He was just one classy guy. And, you know, he just, the way he was is the way he was, the way you seen him. He wasn't a drunk like everybody thinks he was. He just played one, of course. But he was so cool, man. Everybody loved him. You know, you get the two people that say Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin. A lot of people say Frank, but most people will say they like Dean because of how he was as a person.
And also on top of it, most people forget the original Rat Pack, you know, was, you know, coined by Humphrey Bogart's girlfriend at the time, and you had Lauren Bacall, and you also had Joey Bishop, Peter Lawford, which most people feel that the original Rat Pack.
There was only four of them, that's true. Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Joey Bishop, and Sammy Davis, and then of Peter Lawford, so there was five. But originally it was with Humphrey Bogart and David Niven and Errol Flynn, and at the end when Humphrey Bogart was dying, Sinatra got in there and he gave him the torch to carry it on, and they were all drunk one day, laying on the ground, and Lauren Bacall comes in with that. You guys look like a bunch of pat racks. And Sammy called it. Sinatra never liked the word Rat Pack. He liked the word the Summit. That's what he wanted to call it. But that's why they were so great. I mean, look, when you went to go see them or when you seen them, they were all sharing the spotlight. It wasn't all Frank. It wasn't all Dean. It wasn't all Sammy. I wish we can do that again. Sometimes a lot of entertainers don't do that anymore.
Well, I think also, too, you have a lot of jealousy and a lot of animosity with this. But the thing is, what makes your rendition of Dean Martin from everything that everyone's talked about, I mean, it's the validation that you get not only from his daughter, but also the fans. Because some people can, you know, it's like a comedian that can do voice impersonations. There's some people that can kind of do it, but not really. But the way you sing with the talent that you have, but also the bravado in your voice, I mean, that must make you feel good because validation. Because also, you worked with Don Rickles, Tony Bennett. I mean, all these legends, and also, you know, you got the brush of fame of in the elevator, like most people. You know, with Frank Sinatra, most of us get that one. Like, oh, well, I was in the same elevator with him. But to get the validation from the legends themselves and giving you the validation of your career, that must make it special.
Yeah, it was great. And of course, if it wasn't for people to put me in those spots. Tony Bennett, I was there because he was doing a show at the Woodfield Mall, and the person who was catering the show, Richie Mancini, said, "Hey, you need an opening act?" "Yeah," and I was just there at the time. That's how I got the Tony Bennett thing. Don Rickles was because of the Gillies organization, and because Ron Onesti got with that, and with Jerry Lewis, and I mean, we got to be open for so many great people. Probably the most, not weirdest, but one you would never see together was R. Kelly. When I did a couple of shows with R. Kelly, which was kind of cool.
Well, and plus also, too, you've spanned for 25 years, singing different genres. What's the biggest change you've seen in the music industry?
Oh, it's horrible right now. It's just trash right now. It's all lip syncing now. It's all, the bands just can't make it anymore. If you're not a young kid or a young girl, you just ain't got a shot now. If you notice all these old acts, you know, they're recording records, but nobody's buying them unless they're real fans, you know. I mean, I still buy Ian Hunter records and stuff. You still got that, you know, Cheap Trick. No young fans know who they are, but I still love them to death. But the whole world, American Idol and all those kind of shows kind of destroyed the music business in a way, because they make these people, they build them, they invent these people. It's not like people writing great songs. Not everybody, but most of the people now, I can't tell you who's who. I haven't listened to the radio in 15 years.
And also, too, you're an innovator in the Chicagoland music scene because you were doing something called backtracking, which most people don't even know. You started out as one of the first people to do that. And for the fans out there, they don't know what backtracking is. I know it is, you know what it is, but you were the first one to do it in the Chicagoland area.
Well, I got lucky. Two of my guys were doing it, and I got, it happened. How it happened, when Las Vegas went on strike, they started using tracks for a long time. That's how it happened. That's how it got down to these backing tracks and stuff. And now I usually have a piano player, Jamie Passman, with me. Or I have, of course, one of my great partners, Anthony Francasano, with me. And we do the shows together. If it's not with the band, like my Retro Rockets band, who've been with me for a long time, who are playing tonight. But that's the only way that I can play 3 to 4 nights a week, because some restaurants can't afford to bring a whole band in. So I'm fortunate to be able to do both. And casinos, festivals, you can see me with the Retro Rockets band. Some smaller Italian restaurants, you can see me with Anthony Casano or Jamie Passman, but you're still going to get the same show.
And what keeps you motivated? Because you know there are the highs and then there's also the lows about this business in any profession. What keeps you motivated? Because there are the tough times that everyone goes through with being successful.
3 things. Number 1, I got to eat. Number 2, I can't see me working 9 to 5. And recently I found a very special person in my life who's made my life a lot easier. So when I get up and I want to go to work, it's a little bit more energy now to have someone who supports behind you. It's very important. Any successful man or any successful woman, that person behind them is the one that strives. And I think that's very important with my life now.
Well, I definitely know that perspective also, because if you don't have the support and you don't have the push to drive you to be that person, to be the very best, because they're believing you, because they know you not only as Tony Ocean, but
and they're also going to tell you, hey, you're screwing up, or you know what I mean,
I've heard that a few times.
Really good. Yeah, but and most of the time they're right. Yeah, most of the time they're right.
And the thing is that being Tony Ocean has its perks with being celebrities, because you have the love of the Yankees, I know. I know love of the Chicago sports team. I know you love of professional wrestling. But because you are now in that celebrity status, who was you able to meet because you were Tony Ocean? Because as Mo or me as Paul, sometimes we didn't get that position to meet that celebrity we always wanted to meet. Who was that one that you were able to meet?
Jerry Lewis, Derek Jeter, Dean Martin, Don Rickles. Yeah, at that time it was cool just seeing all those people, to get a chance to go in there, and that was very cool.
And that's the great thing about being with all the success, the highs and lows, but to actually be in a position to, hey, meet these people.
And a big highlight for me is with the Dream Police with my Cheap Trick tribute band, which we started in '89 with one of the very first. And then we disbanded after a few years, but I got the band back together because they got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And they were my favorite rock idols. When I got Rick Nielsen and Bunny Carlos to come up on stage and play with the Dream Police in Rockford, in her hometown, that was fantastic.
I just was told by your manager about what you're going to do with the celebrity roast night.
Yeah, we signed with Shark Entertainment, Tony LaBarbera.